Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. So for this video I requested for people to send some unpopular or uncommon Blackpink and BTS opinions on Quora, which I could then comment on in this video. I got quite a few, so I'll only be addressing the BTS ones here and the Blackpink ones in another video so that this video won't become too long. If you want to pause to read the original unpopular opinion in more detail, you totally can. I'm not going to be reading them out loud because I feel that it will just take way too long since a lot of these are very long. But yeah, if you want to read them in more detail, you can read them for yourself. I don't think I'm the best person to comment on this because I'll admit it, I didn't know the original version of chicken noodle soup before you mentioned it here. I also have grown up in Finland and definitely not listening to a lot of hip-hop, so I think maybe it's understandable. Anyway, I haven't really noticed people saying that J-Hope made the song popular. I also don't really know how popular the original version of the song is, but I'll assume that it's at least popular in certain parts of America. However, I do think that he probably introduced it to a new audience, considering that BTS have a very international audience. But that's what always happens with people remixing older songs, and I think that's really nothing to be mad about. Although I do understand the frustrations with people giving no credit or little credit to the original artist. I'd also say that claiming people who prefer the newer version to not having any taste is pretty harsh. Listening to music is a subjective experience after all, so you can't just claim that a person has no taste just because they don't share your taste. Personally, I'm the exact opposite because dancing-wise my eyes are always drawn to and touched by Jimin's elegance and ability to convey emotions while dancing. And singing-wise, Jungkook is also my favorite. I find his voice so breathy and soft and youthful, and it just makes me feel so refreshed. However, this is obviously just my preference and you're entitled to your own preference. I don't necessarily think that Taehyung is really stable because there's some footage that insinuates the opposite. However, generally he's a good performer and stable and also has a very charismatic voice, so I don't really think the occasional instability is a massive issue. Stay Gold honestly never hit me that hard. My favorite Japanese song by BTS would probably be Crystal Snow or Don't Leave Me. It might be that Stay Gold would grow on me later though because of the nostalgia. It's honestly difficult to predict. I see older armies everywhere complaining about people needing to get over older jokes. However, I don't really get why. Why can't people who are not tired of the jokes or who are just introduced to them enjoy them? Who is it really harming? Also, why does something being old mean that you can't enjoy it anymore? It's like saying that you shouldn't enjoy the Beatles because look at the date. They haven't been active in 50 years. Since you were also discussing how toxic and intense the fandom is, I want to mention this. I feel that creating rules for new armies such as get over their older content just because it's old, even if you might find it enjoyable, is also slightly contributing to the toxicity. Why do we need so many rules in the fandom? I would imagine that it's very off-putting and intimidating for a new army to join a fandom and then notice that there are so many rules and ways to get cancelled. It's difficult to speak on the members' mental health since we don't know them. I do think that the members have struggled, but I also think that recently they've been working a lot on reflecting on how to deal with all the spotlight. I think some members are struggling more and others are actually doing quite well and learning to cope with it. Jimin, for example, seems a lot happier compared to the past these days. Yes, they will be tired occasionally because of the reasons you said, but that doesn't mean that they are always pretending to be happy, because after all, emotional states fluctuate. When it comes to Hoseok, I do think that he is sad sometimes, but I also think that he is just naturally a person who's very expressive and appears jolly most of the time. I don't think this is just because he's in the spotlight. I think he's like this generally with people. For example, in a recent Run episode, Jimin said that he initially thought Hobie would make a lot of sound effects to fill the silence, but turns out he's just a noisy person. Some people are just naturally like that. In terms of Jungkook, I also think that people should just allow him to live a little and not scrutinize every small thing about him. Jungkook is someone very sensitive and will clearly feel very burdened if he feels he's let others down. He also seems like someone who will in those situations close himself off instead of voicing his struggles out loud. He has even mentioned how he feels nervous to communicate with ARMY these days, so I do worry about him sometimes. Please cut Jungkook some slack, after all we know that he has good intentions. I'm not sure if Taehyung vapes because a lot of people seem to have conflicting opinions on what the object in the photos actually is. However, if he vapes, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Of course, I would prefer him not to vape, but as you said, he's a grown man and can make his own decisions. To be honest, I think you're overreacting a bit. Yes, I do think that Jimin struggles with his vocals probably the most in the group, and sometimes his singing sounds a bit strained. However, I think you're possibly overreacting a bit because based on my observations, his voice has always had rather similar issues, so I don't think it needs urgent attention or that he's losing his voice. I'm not an expert though, and I could totally be wrong, so don't quote me on that. I do actually think that BTS do deserve their current hype. The content that they are producing is diverse and it's leaving a positive impact on many people. Clearly, a lot of people see something in their content, otherwise they wouldn't enjoy it as much. Just because you don't feel like it's good enough doesn't mean that objectively it's not. Also, you can measure the quality of content in many different ways. I certainly think that the music is very authentic and has valuable messages that are definitely speaking to people. I'd firstly talk about Suga because he happens to be my favorite rapper of all time, so here's why I disagree with this. I don't think rapping is just about being able to rap fast, although Suga can definitely do that, but it's also about being able to adjust your rapping style to fit a song's mood, which I think Yoongi does perfectly. I find his delivery incredibly diverse and he's capable of conveying different emotions effectively. He sounds passionate and raw, and has amazing flow and of course swag. Suga's also really talented at writing rap lyrics. From how it sounds, his lyrics are playful and have amazing flow. They come across as sincere, raw, and meaningful. When it comes to RM and J-Hope, I think that they're also amazing rappers, but I would still say that the ones you mentioned are possibly better or on similar level. However, it's quite subjective. J-Hope and RM, especially RM, also write amazing lyrics, which I think should be taken into consideration. I must say, I feel more connected to BTS's earlier music, specifically the Wings, The Most Beautiful Moment in Life, and Love Yourself eras. However, there are several songs that I still enjoy from the newer eras. I also thought of why I feel more connected to the earlier music, and I realized that nostalgia plays a huge part in how we feel about songs. I was also on a massive high when I first got into BTS, which I've now recovered from, though I still love and enjoy their content. So yeah, you should consider these factors before complaining about their newer music. I also find it understandable that their content is changing and have come to accept it. I totally agree with this and you summarized it perfectly. I personally am the most attracted to their vocals out of all boy groups because of their uniqueness. However, I do acknowledge that they're not the strongest vocal line. Personally, I prefer Boy With Love over On Musically just because On was a bit too noisy for me. However, I do think that On is a good track even if it wasn't for me. It also came with amazing performances. In my opinion, out of those newer albums, Black Swan is the superior track. I don't think that the lyrics made On less popular though. I do think that Boy With Love is just musically more mainstream and appeals to a larger audience. I really can't believe some armies wanted BTS to not go to the military. Like, yes, BTS is really famous and to some degree helped put K-pop on the map. Won't say they paved the way because many others before them hit the Western market. But like, just because they did, that doesn't mean that they get excused from their country's duties. It's something you grew up knowing as a young boy. You will serve in the military. That's the country's policy. Who do you think BTS is just to say no to it and not do it? I do think that BTS are going to go to the military, but do I think that they should have to go? Not necessarily. Do I think that they would receive some backlash from the Korean public? Yes. So here's the deal. Some musicians, ballet dancers, and athletes get to be exempt from the military. I'm assuming that this is partly because you're only functional to work in many of these fields when you're young, and partially because these people have improved the country's image and national pride. So why shouldn't BTS get this privilege when they tick all of these boxes? Firstly, they're at their peak right now, and going to the military service now will definitely harm their careers. The career of a K-pop idol also has a time limit, mainly because it is so tied with having a youthful, attractive appearance. BTS have also boosted Korea's image massively. I would definitely say that they have paved the way for K-pop in the West. Yes, there have been K-pop groups who have had popularity in the West earlier too, but I don't think it's even comparable to BTS's success. I'm not going to go over all the things that they have achieved because it's easy to search up, but almost everyone I know has at least heard of BTS despite not listening to K-pop at all, and I think that really says something. BTS also brings billions of won to the South Korean economy yearly, so I think that they totally deserve to be exempt from the military. It would possibly be different if athletes or musicians wouldn't get exempt, but because they do, I think there's a clear double standard if BTS don't get the opportunity to do that. The least they could do is allow BTS to do it a bit later. In terms of military service overall, I think we have quite different takes on this because you seem to value military service. I, on the other hand, find it really sad that men are forced to spend a part of their youth participating in military service, which seems like a cold and harsh environment, especially to individuals who are a bit on the softer side. Not that I know anything about what goes on in there, so don't quote me on that. I understand why Korea has it, but it still seems cruel to me that anybody would be forced to do it. So that's also a reason why I don't feel strongly about them doing military service or showing a good example to kids. I just talk about BTS in this video, so I won't address Blackpink now. In terms of which groups are the best, it's really subjective and depends on how you look at it. However, to me, BTS will always be in a different category from other K-pop groups I've seen so far because I connect with the members the most, and I really think that their content has spoken to today's youth unlike any other group's content. Their lyrics are truly wise and impactful, and the members themselves come across as very authentic and invested in the message that they are spreading. I could make an entire documentary on why I feel like BTS resonate with people on a different level, but I just keep it short here. Okay, so I'm just gonna read this because I thought it was amusing. And I think that armies attack other groups because they don't write about the philosophy of the universe in their songs or something. But as soon as other groups do have songs with deep meanings, it's all, BTS did that first. Your groups are a bunch of copycats. Like, what? How can people win here? ARMY is supposed to stand for Adorable Representative MC for Youth, but I don't see people being adorable representatives for our generations or our bands. If your idea of adorable was to be toxic, you are not fit for the name ARMY. And on the flip side there is, armies are not as bad as they used to be. I think a lot of the toxic armies have either grown out of or matured within the fandom. That's not to say that there are no more toxic fans, but I think the number has gone way down. The only thing I'm afraid of is more young armies coming in and making the fanbase really toxic again. So many people had varying opinions on this topic, so I just summarized my views on it overall. I think many can agree that becoming a BTS fan for a lot of people is a really intense experience. For many, it becomes a cop-out of their identity because their messages are basically trying to guide you towards self-love and self-acceptance, which are both very personal and emotional things. I think that's why people are very emotionally invested in them. This obviously creates a very intense feelings also within the fandom, and that just comes with it. Yes, some fans will be toxic, but please remember that the fandom is massive, so there will inevitably be toxic individuals there, and the toxic people are vocal. However, the fandom is also incredibly welcoming and in many ways a beautiful community. I think you can really feel the beauty of the fandom if you go to a concert, for example. I've come across such talented, intelligent, hardworking, and creative people in this fandom. Remember that armies have also come together to donate $1 million to the Black Lives Matter movement, so it's not really all bad. I've actually gotten the most out of being in this fandom if I compare it to other fandoms I've been in. So next I just put a few short opinions that were also sent to me, but I won't comment on these because I just feel like these are either not that unpopular or I just don't have much to say about them because I agree with them, or also there were a few comments about the BTS members' visuals, and because visuals are such a subjective thing, I also don't want to comment on it because I feel like I don't know what there's really to debate about it. Everyone has their own preferences, but yeah, I'll still put them there if you want to look through them. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please tell me your opinions down below, and if you disagree or agree with me, I love reading them. And yeah, my next video will be a similar video but about Blackpink, so I hope that you'll watch that one too. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.